Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm George and Merry Christmas. So today I'm here outside Battersea Power Station. And I'm going to be doing a Christmas themed plein air painting. So I've wrapped up really warmly. It's quite cold and I always find I get very cold when I'm painting because you stand still in one spot and you get so much colder than if you're moving around. There's a lot of interesting scenes to paint, and I'm going to be painting at night time to try and capture these Christmas lights. Nighttime's really the best time to see all the colourful lights and the Christmas displays. I know on the other side of the power station there's a nice Christmas tree, so I may paint that, or I may paint something around this Christmas fair. I'm here outside the tree that I want to paint. Really massive Christmas tree, and I actually went past the Christmas tree in Trafalgar Square. And I think that this one here outside Battersea Power Station is even more impressive. It's definitely got a lot more lights on it. I'm not sure if it's bigger or not, but I think it looks better anyway. My plan is to paint under a bit of shelter here and then paint that tree into my painting. Remember, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's start painting.
I start the painting by sketching in the main components of the scene using raw umber paint. I first sketch a simple grid to help me reference the vertical and horizontal relationships of the various points in my painting. I then place the main features as simplified shapes, such as a triangle for the Christmas tree. I'm also using straight lines where possible, as these are easier to analyse and change. Once I'm confident with the placement of the components in the scene, I can then add more details to the underdrawing. However, I don't want to spend too long on this stage, as ultimately everything in the undersketch will be painted over. I tend to feel the more roughly I do my undersketch, the more confidently I will paint over it, as I feel less pressure to cling to the intricacies within it, and I'm less attached to the drawing in general. So as a result, I'm more likely to apply the paint with bolder and more interesting brushstrokes, rather than filling in small sections within the boundaries of my underdrawing. Now I'm painting the darkest dark of my painting. I'm using a colour mix of ivory black, ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, as I never like to use pure black in any area of the painting. And often when painting plein air, I don't add black to my palette at all, which helps me paint the shadows with more colour. However, as this is a nocturnal painting, I find that black is a useful addition to my palette. Another tip when painting nightscapes is to try and find a spot where your canvas is well lit, like here where I'm under this bridge which has good lighting. But if not, you can bring your own light, and that way you can attach it to your easel and work this way. And ideally you want to work under a light which is soft, so that it lights the canvas evenly and doesn't create too much of a harsh glare on the paint. And you don't want your light to be too warm or too cool in colour temperature, as this will change the appearance of the colours that you place in your painting, which will often lead to your painting looking strange in daylight or the light of the gallery that you exhibit it in. So where possible, you want to use a neutral light which is soft or has a diffuser over it. Using a colour mix of raw umber, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre and a small touch of cadmium red, I'm painting the darkest sections of the walls in Battersea Power Station. And I'm using this colour mix to draw and define the contour of this glowing star on top of the Christmas tree. As I mass in more of the walls on the power station, there is a gradation in tonal value, with the upper sections being the darkest, and lower down on the walls it becomes lighter and warmer in colour temperature. Also, there are various shifts in value between the change in angles of the walls, and I'm using subtly different colour mixes to articulate the structure of the power station. So if you're unfamiliar with the history of Battersea Power Station or haven't visited in recent years, it's a decommissioned coal-fired power station on the south bank of the River Thames in London, and after nearly 40 years of it being shut, the power station reopened in 2022 as a shopping mall with various bars and restaurants and leisure venues in and around it, and it also has some very expensive apartments and a new Zone 1 tube station. And for the 10 years that I've lived in London, most have been spent living nearby the power station, and it's been a closed off building site, so every time I go in it and visit, it's always quite amazing to see its transformation. For the areas which are getting lit directly, I'm leaving them as the light undertone of the panel for now, as it will be easier to paint the light paint over the section of panel which is dry, rather than having to layer over a wet section of paint. Here I'm massing in the ground. I'm trying to cover the whole area with its approximate tonal value and colour first. Then I can add smaller details and value and colour shifts later on. As I paint this area, it's darkest in the foreground and towards the edges, and it gets lighter and warmer in colour temperature towards the Christmas tree, which is giving off a lot of light and lighting the ground around it. Now I'm painting in the darkest sections of the tree between the Christmas lights. I'm using a colour mix of ultramarine blue, raw umber and a touch of emerald green and a small touch of cadmium yellow to create a very dark green. I'm just filling in the darkest sections of the tree for now and leaving the lightest areas as the light tone of the panel, as oil paint is slightly translucent, so for that reason I try to avoid having to paint the lightest areas on top of the darkest paint, as this will limit how light I can paint these areas. Here I'm sketching in this queue of people waiting to buy these chimney cakes, which these small huts in front of the power station are selling, and I tried one of these the other day for the first time and it was really tasty, and it's more like a pastry than a cake, and it comes as a long tube which they cook to order, so it's nice and warm and it can be dipped in a topping of your choice, and they've got a few different options, and I went with the cinnamon sugar and pistachio, which was really nice. And ever since my recent trip to Italy, I've got really into eating pistachio flavoured things. So definitely the pistachio chimney cake was a good option. And if you ever tried a chimney cake, let me know in the comments, as I thought they were specially designed for Battersea Power Station, as the chimney shape of the cake nicely fits the theme of Battersea Power Station with its huge iconic chimneys. However, I did see them on sale at Winter Wonderland too, so maybe they're more common than I realised. but either way they're definitely a tasty treat. Now I'm painting the strip of metal which is reflecting the yellow lights on the Christmas tree, as its surface is much shinier and reflective than the rest of the pavement. To paint the bright lights on the tree, I first paint a thin wash of cadmium yellow around the area where the lights are, which helps give the lights their glow. Then using a fine pointed brush, I place a small but thick speck of paint in the middle of the yellow glow, using a colour mix of mostly titanium white and a small touch of cadmium yellow mixed in to create a very bright light yellow. And then the more chromatic cadmium yellow thinly placed around this gives the bright speck its yellow glow without me having to add too much cadmium yellow into that white speck, which would darken the value of the light, taking away its brightness. Here I'm painting the reflections of the tree's lights on the ground. These highlights are brightest closest to the tree, and the further from the tree, the weaker these light reflections become, with the exception of where the lights are being reflected on this metal strip. And in a scene like this, with multiple light sources, it's good to really observe the scene closely, as there's no easy formula to depict a scene like this. However, it is good to bear in mind that every object which is getting illuminated by a light will reflect the light source, and a shadow will be cast by the areas that are facing away from the light. And there's going to be bounce light and reflected light and shadow shapes just like there are on a sunny day. The only difference is that they'll be falling at different angles depending on which light source is closer and more dominant to the particular area that is getting illuminated. Here I'm painting some figures which are closer to the foreground and will take up more space and require more detail than the distant figures. I really like to paint figures into my landscapes and cityscapes, as they give a narrative to the painting, and they also give a sense of scale to the scene, as we know the size of a person and therefore we can imagine ourselves in the scene, and we can also reference points against the people to see how big different areas of the painting are. And as Battersea Power Station is a very popular tourist location, especially this time of year around Christmas, there's just so many people around, so I feel like in order to give it that Christmas buzz, I have to add quite a few figures to the scene. And they also add a nice bit of visual interest to the right of the painting, as at the moment the main focal point is the Christmas tree, which is sitting on the left, so it's a good idea to sort of balance your composition so that it's not too heavy on one side. Here I'm pushing the section behind the tree on the left darker in tonal value in order to add variety to the edge of the Christmas tree, so that some of the dark sections of the tree can be lost into the background, which helps root the tree in the scene and prevents it looking too much like a two-dimensional cutout stuck onto the scene. Also, the dark areas help add impact to the bright lights by adding more contrast, making them appear even more bright and shiny. And another nice thing about nocturnal paintings is some areas are so dark that you can actually use that to paint the area in quite a simplified fashion without having to add too many details, which will save you time. But also, as you want to draw attention to the focal points in your scene, you don't need to add details in every corner of the painting, and in fact sometimes too many details can sometimes be a bit distracting from the focal points where you want the viewer's eyes to look.
professional or like a promotion or something?
Sorry?
The control room is asking.
Yep. A professional, yeah.
But you have a camera, so
I was doing like a YouTube film.
are you professional, right?
Yeah, yes,
But they're asking maybe you're not allowed. Did you take permission from anyone?
No, but I've painted here before.
Where
Yeah,
did
just
you paint?
I'm on the ice rink. And I was painted here 2 days
Did you
ago.
have any permission? Should I say professional?
I don't know, just not sure.
Charlie Papa, he's. You need to stop now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can't without that permission. And go inside the shopping mall.
Yeah.
You will find the officer there.
Okay.
Talk to them. They will take you somewhere. Then you can get the
Okay.
permission.
So in here there's someone. Okay.
Yeah. Go there, shopping mall.
Sure, yeah.
Talk with some
Okay.
officer. Sorry about that.
Well, no worries, no worries.
Anyway, back to the tutorial. So here I'm painting the lights in the windows of Battersea Power Station, and I'm using a similar technique to the way I painted the lights on the Christmas tree by painting the glow of the light first, and then with a lighter colour mix, applying the brightest bit of the light with a bold brushstroke consisting mostly of titanium white, so that I can push pretty much to my maximum brightness that my palette allows. Using a narrow brush with a fine point, I'm now refining the window frames.
Hi.
You need a work permit, I'm sorry.
I got permission.
Huh?
Yeah,
Can
so
I
the
see?
girl in the blue jacket, she told me to go into the guys at
Yeah.
the desk.
And did they
Yeah,
give
so I
you a
spoke to
lanyard?
them and they said it's okay. Just in the future, I need to write an email in the future. But they said for this one it's okay because it's almost finished. They just told me to make certain this isn't in anybody's path.
Given the wrong advice by guest services, so they need you to stop.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So annoyingly, they weren't letting me finish my painting on the tripod, so here I'm just adding some final details to the painting, and luckily I was pretty much finished, so I'm just adding a few touches here. Otherwise, if that was halfway through, that would have been so much more annoying. But definitely, word of advice if you're going to paint inside or outside or anywhere close to Battersea Power Station, try and get permission in advance. But luckily I managed to get most of the painting done anyway.
So I hope you enjoyed that video of me painting there at Battersea Power Station of that big Christmas tree behind me. I could definitely have painted more on that, added more details, but really annoyingly today security just weren't letting me paint there. I think there was some sort of head security guy in an office somewhere looking at me on CCTV and basically telling the security guards that I wasn't allowed to paint. Apparently I was on CCTV without a permit, so strange you need a permit to paint. You know, I painted in so many different locations all over the world, and you know, it's quite a nice thing to get your location painted. I wasn't obstructing anything or anything like that, but anyway, they basically kept telling me I couldn't paint there. I went inside to get permission, but the staff there kind of thought, you know, it's probably fine for you to carry on and finish the painting, but I think this sort of head security guy didn't give me permission. He seemed to have sent other security guards to tell me I couldn't paint. So yeah, a bit annoying really. So if you are an artist and you want to paint at Battersea Power Station, you probably have to email them for permission in advance and, you know, get a lanyard or something like that. But yeah, a bit annoying experience, to be honest. And if you're an artist and you've ever been denied from painting somewhere, security's moved you on, then let me know in the comments. I'd be keen to know where that was, why that was, how you dealt with it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I got most of the painting done. I may work on it a little bit at home to finish it up. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, give me a like, and I'll see you in the next video.